welcome to the second part of the Stranger Things blanket. Today, the items that you are going to need, you're going to need a pair of scissors, you're going to need some black yarn, and today we're going to design the word Stranger Things on our red panel. So with each letter, I will let you know exactly how much black yarn you need in inches. And then you're going to need a darning needle. You can use any darning needle that you want. You can use a plastic one, a metal one, an aluminum one. This one is an aluminum one. You can use one with a straight blunt edge, or you can use one with a slightly bent tip. Mine is a slightly bent tip because I have found that when I am doing embroidery on top of crocheted items with yarn, the bent tip gives me a little bit more control. But you can use any darning needle as long as you can do the embroidery with your yarn. All right. Then you need some kind of measuring tape, and I'm using my little fun friend here that was gifted to me from a very special friend who wants to remain anonymous. So I'm using the llama as my measuring tape. And then the last thing you need to get started is I always encourage everyone when you're crocheting to moisten your hands with moisturizer to not only keep your hands moisturized, but it helps with the joints, it helps keep the muscles flexible as it helps to soften and loosen them up. So just make sure you rub that in really, really good. Let it absorb into the skin because you don't want it getting on your project. But you do want to take care of your hands as they are the best tool that you have when it comes to your project. And I cannot stress that enough. Now, we are ready to start. As you'll notice, I have my first section here. And you can see I still have my stitch markers running along the edge of my blanket. I have them marking every 25 stitches, except on one end, it has 24 because we have 224 stitches going across. Now, we are actually designing this blanket from top to bottom. So this is not the top of our blanket. So we need to turn our blanket around in order to begin part 2, because this, where our foundation row started with the red, this is the top of our blanket. Now I'm going to pause the video a minute so I can open my blanket all the way up because I do have it folded and get it in position. So we're ready to get started. Okay, to get started, you do want to make sure that you are on the right side of your work as you do your lettering. That's very, very important. So I have a stitch marker, like I told you in part 1, that I have indicating which is my front side, so I will always know, because we want to make sure that we're always doing our designs on the front side. Once you have that, we're going to go all the way to the end where we started our blanket. I've done my best to work on the lighting, so hopefully you can see. So the first letter that we are going to end up making is the letter S. And I'm going to sit this up here because once I give you the instructions on how to work it, you do not have to follow me. Now as we get through the S, I'm going to pretty much give you the graph and then get you started and let you work on the letter by yourself. But for the first one, I am going to work with you in case you are not experienced in doing this. So looking at this graph of the S, this is our first S for stranger. You can see that it has 24 rows to create the length of this. And then you can see it has 17 rows to create the width. The S and the R in stranger are going to be the only 2 letters that are bigger than the rest of the letters. The rest of the letters in stranger and the letters in things will be smaller. All right. Now, if you notice here at the bottom, it says that there's 79 X's. So regardless of where you start your count, if we start here and work our way all the way around the S, there are 79 X's that are going to create this S. In order to do that, you need to cut a piece of black yarn that measures 170 inches. Okay? All right. So you've got this to refer to. Now let me get you started. So I'm going to remove this for the moment. All right, to get started, I've got my piece of yarn, and it's 170 inches. And unfortunately, the hardest part about working with a long piece of yarn like this is it's real easy for it to want to get tangled. So my recommendation is, as you're doing your S, just take your time and pull it through slowly. Now I have doubled it so that it's not quite as long, giving myself just a small tail, so every so often I'll have to pull it. So I've got just a little bit here to start working with before it doubles up. Okay, it's just like sewing on a button. All right, and it is not knotted at the end. You do not want it knotted. Okay. All right, to get started, we're going to come to the very tip corner here and make sure you're in the very tip corner. Okay. And we are going to count over 46. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Let me slide my blanket over. 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, slide on my blanket again, 45, and 46. So this is where we're going to start our S. Now we're going to come down 4. So we've got 1. All right, get to the bottom of that X there. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so we should have 4 rows above our needle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. All right, so now all I'm going to do is mark that spot with my finger, and I'm going to come through the bottom of it, just like that. Okay. Make sure I'm in the exact hole there. There we go, just like that. And now we're ready to make the first X on our S. All right, so this is where we're at right now, okay? This is our starting mark. But as you can see, so technically, let me grab my scissors so I can show. All right, because I've got this raised a little bit above so you can see it. So right now at our starting mark, we are technically right here in this corner on our graph. Okay, we're on row 1 and we're at this bottom corner here. Okay, so you've got to decide how you want to start your S. I'm going to, for this tutorial, I'm going to have a start right here. So we're in this bottom corner, so we're going to come over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. All right, so when we come over 15, and if you look up here, there's a 15. So we're going to come over 15. So let's do that. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let me slide my blanket. 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. We are now officially ready to start our letter S. I'm going to bring the graph back. We are going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 X's. We're right here in the bottom of this X. Okay, so again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're going to go ahead and start pulling that yarn through. And again, just do it a little bit slowly so you don't have to get your yarn untangled. And then on the back side, I'm just going to leave enough of a tail that I can weave in. Don't need very much. And then I'm just going to kind of hold that so that I don't work over it. All right, then we're going to cross over the little stitch here that's like an X, and we're going to insert it and pull it through. Again, I'm holding my back tail here also to keep from pulling it through. I'm pulling it nice and slow so that my yarn doesn't get tangled. Then I'm going to come to the top of that stitch and I'm going to pull it through and then go in from the front to the back at the bottom left hand and pull it through, and this is going to complete our first X. There is your first X. We got to do 8 more. Now I want all of mine to end in the bottom left hand side, so for the second one I'm going to start in the top of the left side and go from the back to the front of my work, pull that through, and then I'm going to insert in the bottom right hand side from the front of my work to the back of my work. And again, I'm just slowly pulling it because I don't want it to get tangled. Now I'm going to insert it on the top right hand side from back to front and slowly pull it through. And now I'm going to enter it on the bottom left hand side from the front of my work to the back and slowly pull it through. And we have now created our second X. All right, we've got 7 more to do. So let's just work on those together. Again, if you've done this before or you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and slide the video back to the picture of the graph and just work on it yourself. But for those who want the tutorial, again, we're going to work the S all the way together so you can see how it's done. And then I'll get you set up for each of the other letters, and then I'll just have the graph up there for you to pause the video and use the graph. So we're starting number 4 of 9. We've completed 3 X's. Again, I'm still holding my tail back here to make sure it stays out of the way because I don't want it getting sewn in, because I want to actually sew it in when I'm done by weaving it in to make sure that it's nice and secure. All right. We're completing that 4th X. And now we're going to begin number 5. All right, now we've completed the 5th one. We've got 4 more to go. Okay, there's number 6. 3 more to go. Starting number 7. And we're finishing number 7. We have 2 more to go, so let's start number 8. And finishing number 8, and we've got 1 more to go to complete 9. Now the reason that I don't, when I pull it through, go ahead and complete it like this by doing it all at one time, I do the actual inserting into each hole separately, so that way I can have more control on the tension and I can make sure that it is definitely a nice crisp X. See how you can distinctly tell my X's? Well, maybe not because of the lighting, but I just like having that control of it so that it's very neat. All right, and we're completing the 9th X. So we have created the top part of our S. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 X's. All right, let's bring the graph back. All right, now we've completed this. Now we're going to go diagonal. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 diagonals. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 diagonals. So again, so I'm not, you know, because you want this to be so nice and neat on the other side, because it is going to show. So you want to make sure that it's uniformed in its own way. So I want to continue making sure that I end in the bottom left hand corner. So to start diagonal, I'm going to come out from the top left of my 9th one, and I'm going to go over 1 and down 1. Or if it's easier, you can come to this bottom left where we finished up, move over 1, and pull your needle through. And that's coming in the top left of that bottom stitch and what would be number 10. Then we're going to go into the right bottom to start creating our diagonal, and I've gotten enough away from my tail I don't have to hold on to it anymore. Okay, pull this through. And my tail is caught up with me, so I'm just going to slide my tail down a little bit and then grab my yarn and make it straight again. All right, we're going to come into this top right and pull that through and go down to the bottom left. So we've created our first diagonal on row 5. Remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's our first diagonal. All right, from where we just pulled our yarn through, in the bottom left, we're going to go over 1 and insert our needle and pull it through. We're going to insert it into the bottom right. We're going to come to the top right and pull it through. And now to the bottom left and pull it through. And you can see we've created our second diagonal X. We have 3 more to do. Okay. So I'm going to come into that bottom left where I finished up the last X, go over 1, which now makes it the top left of my next diagonal stitch, and pull it through. And I'm going to insert into the bottom right of that stitch. I'm going to come to the top right of that stitch, and then the bottom left of that stitch. And this is going to create my third diagonal X. You can see our S is really coming to life. All right, I'm going to insert my needle into that bottom left where I just pulled through, and I'm going to slide over 1, and this is going to become the top left of my next stitch. I'm going to pull that through, and I'm going to insert it into the bottom right. Now I'm going to go into the top right, pull that through, and I'm going to insert into the bottom left, and this is going to create my fourth diagonal stitch, X. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. We got one more to do. So we're going to come right back into that bottom left we just finished up with, slide over one, and pull that through. The yarn got caught. There we go. Pull that through. Now we're going to enter into the bottom right. And now we're going to come into the top right. And if you ever just pull too tightly, all you have to do is take your yarning needle, and that's why I like the bent in a little bit too, and you can just kind of like lightly pull it up like that. All right, we're going to go into that bottom left and pull through, and this is going to complete our fifth diagonal X. Okay, and so this is what our S is looking like. All right, let me bring the graph back over. All right, where's my needle so I can use it as a pointer? So here we've created our first row of 9, and then we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 diagonal, and you can see that this is actually, this fifth diagonal is actually the first X in our row down. Okay, so we already have this one, so now we're going to add 1, 2, 3, 4 directly underneath that fifth diagonal. All right, so let's add 4 X's. So we're going to come into that bottom left right there where we just finished up. Okay, this time because our S is going to start curving here, I want my last stitch to come in the bottom right. So to do that, when I have my hook inserted in the bottom left where we always start, I'm going to come over to the bottom right of that stitch, and that's where I'm going to insert my hook, needle, pull it through, and now I am going to cross over to the bottom left. And this will allow me to follow the curve and have my needle finish up in the bottom right. All right, so we just came through the bottom left, so now we're going to insert from the back to the front of our work in the top left. And now we're going to complete this X by inserting from the front to the back of the work in the bottom right. And that will complete our first X of the 4, creating our row down. All right, let's do another. Come right back to where we just finished in that bottom left. We're going to slide over to the bottom right and pull our needle through. Oh, my bad, it came out. Because we didn't finish in the bottom left, we finished in the bottom right. So actually, go back to your bottom left, and now we're going to go down to the bottom left of the next stitch that's not been created. Now we're going to pull that through and go up to the top right. Now we're going to come into the top right of the unmade stitch. Top left. I'm so sorry, I'm confusing y'all. We're going to come into the top left of the unmade stitch. And now we're going to come down into the bottom right of the unmade stitch to complete the stitch. And now we have completed 2 X's. Oh, my stitch is not all the way through. That's why I was like, why does that look funny? I just gotta pull it all the way down. There we go. Now that looks right. All right. I'm going to come over for the next stitch, and we're going to go into that bottom left of the unworked stitch and pull it through and go up to the top right. Okay. Coming from the back of the work to the front, we're going to pull through the top left. And now we're going to go through the bottom right. And we will have completed the 3rd X of our 4 X's. That might be a little bit tight there. That might be why. Okay. Now we've got one more to do. So again, we're going to come through that bottom left. Going from the front of our work to the back, go through the top right. We're going to come from the back of the work to the front through the top left. And now we're going to go from the front of the work to the back through the bottom right. And this is going to complete the 4th X we needed to add. And if you count them, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 X's. My table's turning. Let me turn my table back here. Okay. All right. Looking at the graph now. All right, this is where we just finished up. So now we're going to do some diagonals. So we've got to create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 X's going diagonal. Okay. So because we're moving this direction, I want to make sure on all my X's that I'm ending in the bottom right. All right. So to do my diagonal, I'm going to come back where I just finished up in that bottom right, and I'm going to go down 1, so that puts me in the bottom left of the unworked stitch. X, however you want to call it. All right. Now we're going to insert from front to back in that top right. From back to front in the top left. Make sure I go in right where I need to. There we go. And now we're going to go down into the bottom right to complete that X. And we have our first X going diagonal. All right, let's do another one. We're going to come down 1, from where we finished in that bottom right to what will be the bottom left of our unworked stitch. And we're going to pull that through. Then going from front to back, we're going to insert into the top right and pull that through. Now from back to front, we're going to go into the top left, pull it through, and then we're going to go into the bottom right. Okay, and we're going to do it again. And that's our third one. And now working number 4. And that completes the 4th one. I've got to move my tail up a little bit because I'm starting to run out of working yarn. All right. Now we're going to start number 5. Again, coming from back to front in that bottom left, from front to back in the top right, and from back to front in top left. It's just like doing cross stitch. And from front to back, we're going to go through that bottom right. And we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of our 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. So we got 2 more to do. So let me slide my project over here a little bit. All right. Working on the 6th one. You should start to be getting the hang of this a little bit now. Again, I'm just slowly pulling that yarn through so it doesn't get tangled. And that completes our 6th one. We've got 1 more to go. All right, did I come right into that right? Yep, I did. No, did I? Yes, I did. Okay. For a minute there, it just didn't look like I was completely in the hole right, but I was. Again, I apologize for the lighting. I hope you're able to see this. It looks like on camera that you can. All right, and this completes our 7th diagonal. So you can see our S coming to life. All right, let's come back to the graph. And now we're going to do 1, 2, 3 diagonal going this way. So as I create these, I want my ending stitch to be in the bottom left. So I'm going to do just like we did up here. I'm going to start with my needle in the bottom left of the last stitch I made and slide it over here, which for this stitch will be our top left. And we've got 1, 2, 3 of those to make. So here is my bottom left of that stitch. I'm going to slide over one. My needle fell out. Slide over one and pull my needle through. And that's bringing it through the top left of that stitch. Then I'm going to insert it into the bottom right. And then I'm going to insert it into the top right. And then into the bottom left. And that creates my first of 3 diagonal stitches. All right, I'm going to come to the bottom left where I just finished up, slide over one, and enter what is going to be the top left of that stitch, and pull it through. And now going from front to back, I'm going to go into the bottom right of that and pull it through. I'm going to come to the top right, pull it through, and then completing this X going from the front of my work to the back through the bottom right, bottom left. And that completes my second diagonal. We got one more diagonal to do. So again, inserting my needle in that bottom left of the stitch I just completed, sliding it over one. This makes it the top left of my next stitch. So I'm going to pull that through. Going from the front of my work to the back, I'm going to insert my needle in the bottom right, pull that through. Working from the back of the project to the front, I'm going to come in the top right of that stitch, pull it through, and then completing that X, working from the front of my work to the back, go through the bottom left. And that completes my third diagonal stitch. So my S is coming to life. All right, looking at the graph. Now we've just completed this one. Remember that was 1, 2, 3. So now we need to put 2 X's right beside it. Again, I want to end where I'm in this bottom left here. So I'm going to come to my X, and we finished in that bottom left. I'm going to go diagonal up because I want it right beside this one so that I'm putting it in what will be the top left of the stitch I'm creating. Pull it through. Going from the front of my work to the back, I'm going to insert my needle in what is the bottom right of the stitch I'm creating. Then working from back to front, I'm going to come into the top right and pull through. And then working from front to back, go into the bottom left, pull through, and I've created my first X going straight. I'm going to do that one more time. So coming from back to front in the top left of the stitch I'm creating, front to back in the bottom right, back to front in the top right, and front to back in the bottom left. And that has given me those 3 stitches across. Okay. Looking at our graph, we're now going to go diagonal up 1, 2, 3. Okay. I still want my X's ending in the bottom left. So 1, 2, 3. So working from the back to the front, we're going to create a diagonal up. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go into the top left of the last stitch I made, and then I'm going to take it diagonal so it's in the top left of the stitch I want to create. And then working from the front of my work to the back, I'm going to put it in the bottom right of the stitch I'm creating. Then working from back to front, I'm going to go into the top right of the stitch I'm creating. And working front to back, I'm going to go into the bottom left of the stitch I'm creating. And that creates my first diagonal stitch going up. All right, I'm just making this curvature of the S. All right, we want to do 2 more of those diagonals going up. So again, I'm going to go find that top left of the stitch I want to create, and working from back to front, pull it through. Working front to back, I'm going to find that bottom right of the stitch I'm creating, pull it through. Working back to front, go in the top right of the stitch I'm creating, pull it through. And working front to back, go in the bottom left of the stitch I'm creating, pull it through, and this makes our second diagonal stitch going up. Let's do that one more time. Okay, coming through that top left, going down to the bottom right, going from the top right, trying to get it in there, and ending in the bottom left. And this will give us our 3 diagonal stitches going up. Probably a little bit easier for you holding your blanket than me on this table, but you are doing a phenomenal job. All right, so now we're going to come straight down. So we just created this top X because it was part of our 3 diagonal going up. So we don't have to create that one again. So we're going to come down right below that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. All right. And this will complete the first side length of our S. So working from the back to the front, okay, now because when I finish here, I'm going to go this way. I want all of my X's ending in the bottom right. All right. So because I was ending in the bottom left, if I go back through that, it's just going to pull my yarn out. So I'm going to come down to the bottom left of the stitch I'm creating and pull through there. I'm going to work from front to back through the top right of the stitch I'm creating. From back to front through the bottom, from the top left of the stitch I'm creating. And from front to back in the bottom right. And that creates my first X underneath my diagonal. You should have 2 X's side by side. All right, we're going to do that so that we have a total in this down row here, including our diagonal one. We want to make sure we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. Sorry about that. So let's just work on those together. I'm working on number 4, 3 if you're not counting the diagonal one. But we just want to make sure in this row going down we have a total of 8. And it's time for me to move the tail of my working yarn up a little bit. Okay. My yarn's getting a little tangled back here, so it's a good example to be able to show you. I'm just going to have to work that out. And since your yarn is not tangled, keep going. Okay. That's why it's important not to go fast, because then you have to stop and do that. Let me slide my work over because I'm bunching it up. All right. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 3 more to do. And again, I'm working around a camera, so hopefully you're able to hold yours a little bit easier than I can hold mine. But I want to make sure that you can still see what I'm doing so that you can successfully do the other ones on your own. Okay. Got some of mine really tight, so I'm going to loosen them up a little bit. There we go. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got 2 more to do. All right. Working on that 7th one right now. And now the 8th one. And you have now successfully created one side of your S. I know it looks kind of funny, but it'll look better when we get it finished. So now we are right here. This is what we've completed. So past that, we need to add along the side of that one, we need to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, so that we have a total of, as you can see, 12 X's along that bottom. We've already created the first one, so if we add 11, that'll give us 12. So that's what we're going to do. And again, I want us ending with our needle when we create the X's, ending in the bottom right. All right, so now we're going to start. And again, if you can figure this out from the graph, you do not have to sit and watch this. I am doing it step by step with the letter S, so everyone can independently do the other letters by themselves. But I'll get you started on each letter. All right, so for this one, making sure I'm on camera, we're going to come into the top right. We finished in the bottom right of the one before it. Now we're going to come over to the top right of the next stitch we're creating, and then working from front to back, go in the bottom left, come from back to front in the top left, and then front to back in the bottom right. And we need to do that 10 more times. And bear with me again, I'm working around a camera. So I'm working on 3. And now I'm working on 4. Five, and 6. Seven, and 8, and 9. Almost there. And it should be getting a little bit easier to do because your yarn is getting shorter. All right. And 10. Two more to go. $11. And now the last one. 12. Okay. All right. Next, my work's bubbling up from how I'm holding it. After we've completed those 12, we're now going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 diagonal. You're almost there. Look at there. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 diagonal. Now, with these, because we're going up, okay, I want my, sorry, my table's shaking. I want to make sure that I'm ending in my bottom left, okay? So right now, we've been ending here. So when we go to create this, we're going to come to our top right and insert, and then go through our top, excuse me. So we're going to come to the top right of the one we finished, which will be the bottom left of the one we're creating. Work to the top right, then go in the top left and come to the bottom right. So that's how we're going to do those 5. Okay. And then go up to my top right of that stitch, top left, working from the back of the work to the front. There we go. And working from front to back, we're going to go into that bottom right. And there's our first diagonal. Okay. And then our second diagonal. Working on the third one. starting the fourth one. And working on the fifth one. And I need to pull my yarn tail forward. Okay. Look at there, look at there. All right, so now looking at the graph, we completed our fifth diagonal and we need to put 1, 2, 3 on top of it straight up. And because I am curving this way, I want my last stitch to be in the top left of those 3. Okay? So working from the back of my work to the front, I'm going to start in the top left of the previous stitch, and then working from front to back, I'm going to go into the top right of the stitch I'm creating. Then working from back to front, I'm going to come into the bottom right, and working from front to back, I'm going to go into the top left. And I'm going to do 2 more just like that. Well, technically, starting in the top right, come down to the bottom left, bottom right, and then working from the front to the back, go down into the top left. And then I've got 1 more to do. I think that one is over too far. And it is. Okay. So I'm just going to pull this right back up through real quick and fix it. All right, it needs to go in here. There we go. And now we'll work the last one. Oh. All right, I had to stop and pause a minute and adjust my lighting because I was having a hard time seeing. So we're now finishing the 4th X in our row going straight up. Okay. And there we go. All right, looking at the graph. This is what we just finished. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 X's diagonal into the S. Because we're going to be curving back around here, I want to make sure that my final stitch completing each X is ending in the top right. So we are going to work this half of the X first and then this half of the X. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those to do. All right. So I'm going to go straight across so I can create my diagonal. When I say straight across, I move my needle diagonal. So I started in that top left, came to the bottom right. Now I'm going to the bottom left, and I'm going to end it in the top right. And that is 1. I'm going to repeat that. And 2. Three. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. And 9. And you're coming back to the beginning, so you might have to kind of keep an eye on your tail from the start. All right. We're almost finished. So now we're right here. We're going to go diagonal going towards this part of the S, to the right of the S. We're going to do it twice. 1, 2. So we're going to go diagonal 2. All right. Again, I want my X to end in the top right. All right, so let's do this. So we're coming in now. So from the top right where I finished, I'm going to go straight up. So in my new X, I'm in the top left. And then working from the front to the back, go in the bottom right. And in the bottom left, from back to front. And then from front to back, ending in that top right. Making sure my tail, yep, see, it's trying to get caught up in there. I might pull it to the front so I can hold on to it. All right, and I'm going to repeat that. I'm inserting from back to front in the top left, front to back in the bottom right, back to front in the bottom left, and front to back in the top right. Okay, you're almost there. All right, we've completed these 2 diagonals, and now you see there's 2 sitting beside that last diagonal, so it gives it 3 going straight across. So we're going to add those. And with these, I want it to end in the bottom right. So I am going to insert my hook, or my needle, I guess, in the bottom right of the stitch I just completed. Pull that through. Grab my tail. Pull it to the front so I'm not working over it. All right, from front to back, I'm going to go into that top right. And from back to front, I'm going to go into the top left. And from front to back, go into that bottom right. Once again, I'm going to go from back to front and top right. Well, or you can start bottom left, it doesn't matter. But I'm definitely completing it coming from back to front in top left and front to back ending in bottom right. All right. We've just completed those. So now we're going to come down 1. And after we come down 1, we're going to do a total of 3. See that? So I want to make sure that I'm still ending following the pattern. So I'm going to end with the bottom right. So I'm going to slide over and insert from the back of my project to the front in the top right. I'm going to insert from front to back in the bottom left. And insert from back to front in top left, ending, going from the front of my work to the back in that bottom right. I'm going to go diagonal so that the next stitch I'm entering the back of my project to the front in the top right, front to back in the bottom left, back to front in the top left, and front to back in the bottom right. All right, again, go diagonally up so that I'm going from the back of my project to the front in the top right, front to back in the bottom left, back to front in the top left, and front to back in the bottom right. And that completes that. And then when you look back at the graph, we've completed this and we've completed this one. We have to have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So since we've completed both of those, we only should have 4 spaces to fill in going straight up to connect it and to finish our S. And indeed, we are lined up. So I am going to, coming from the back of my project to the front, I'm going to enter into the top left, from front to back, the bottom right. I'm going to grab my tail and pull it to the front so I don't work it in. From back to front through bottom left, front to back, top right. And I'm just going to repeat that 3 more times. Again, my lighting is a little bit darker in here from me so that you can see what I'm doing. So I apologize. I got to pull this one out because it's not quite in the right spot. And I do want to make sure I'm accurate. So again, I appreciate the grace that you give me working around my camera and in poor lighting so that you can see it, because that's what's important. All right, now coming in the right place. There we go. I'm just working those X's till we meet where we began. I've got 2 more to do. And working on the last one. And there we go. There is the S of stranger. Nice work, everyone. Okay. Now, I want to show you, if you turn your work over, and of course mine's going to be upside down, but you can still see what I'm talking about. Look how nice that is, even for being the back side. By working it the way we did, you don't have a lot of lines running everywhere, and it looks nice. Now, obviously you can tell the front from the back, but even so, the back, and again, my S right now is upside down, but you can see how nice it is. You're just going to weave in your ends. So I'm going to leave you to that. So go ahead and get your ends weaved in. I'll do one with you, just so you can see how I do it. So I just get it on my needle. Again, my lighting is a little bit poor, so. And then I just kind of slide it under some of the little stitches that we've made, like that. Pull it through, and then we want to take it back, but we want to skip the last stitch that we had gone under. So skip that and then work it back through, and what that does is it just locks it in. So no matter how many times you wash it, it's not going to come out. And then, not sure where my scissors went to. And then you just snip it off. Oh, here they are. All right. And you're going to do the same thing. Now, I had a little bit of a tail left. I'd always rather have more than not enough, but it doesn't necessarily mean you will necessarily end up with this much left over. You may not be as tight on your tension as I am. So you want to have, you know, the grace of having a little bit more so that you don't run out, because you don't want to have to weave in ends halfway through. Now, since this is so long and I only need a little bit for weaving in, I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one that I did over here. But since this is attached here, I'm going to go down underneath these stitches so you can't see it. Again, my tension's a little bit tight on my work, but that's okay. That's not a right or wrong. And then I'm going to skip the last one I went under and come back up through them. You only have to do a few, and that locks it in. And then I'm ready to snip it off. And there we go. And then once again, let's see if I can do this without shaking the table too bad. Turn it back over. And there is our S for stranger. Job well done. All right, I'm going to get us set up for the T, and I'll be right back. Real quick, if you have extra yarn left over from letters, do not throw it away, because there's a couple letters that you're going to need just a small piece for to do like the center of a letter, and those extra pieces will work perfect for that, so you can utilize that yarn. So just put it to the side. Now we're ready to start the T in Stranger, and as you can see, it's 18 rows long and it's 14 rows wide. We are going to be doing a total of 60 X's to create this T, and you need 132 inches in yarn to do this. All right, we're going to put a spacer in between each letter of 2 rows or 2 stitches. So as you can see, we're going to go straight across on this T. Now you can do these however you want. You can start from the bottom of the S and start here and work your way around, or start here and work your way around. You can do it however you want. That's why on the graph I've shown you the 18 rows on both sides and the 14 rows on top and bottom. So you can start it however you feel comfortable with. But whatever you do, make sure in between each letter you are skipping 2 stitches. So I'm going to get you started. Now for mine, I'm going to start right here because it's going to be the easiest, and I'm going to work my way around my T so that I come back and meet right here. All right, so in order to do that, I want my X's to end in the bottom right. So I'm going to start in the bottom left, go up to the top right, and then start in the top left and come down to the bottom right. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm trying to keep the graph there as well as best I can. All right, so here is where my S ended. So I'm going to come over from the top of my S, 1, 2. All right, but if you look, that's just sitting above this S, the rounded part. So when I make my 2 spaces, I need to make sure that it is 2 spaces out from where my S completely ended. All right, so let me come down here because this is where it sticks out the furthest, and I'm going to go 1, 2 over. Then I'll follow that all the way back up to the top, and now if you look, there's actually 4 spaces between this, but there's still only 2 spaces between where the S sticks out the most. So it's real important that you're making sure that your 2 spaces is literally separating the letters. Okay? So now I'm going to make my first X of my T. And because I want to end in the bottom right, I'm going to take this and I'm going to enter into the bottom left. Again, I just want to make sure I'm leaving enough of a tail to weave in. And then I'm going to pull it to the front and hold it so it doesn't get worked in. And then I'm going to complete the first X of my T. And there we go. So just a quick recap. You want to make sure that your letters are all starting on the height here. They will not be as long as the S. The S is longer than the other letters. The S and the R will be bigger than the rest of the letters. So your T is going to end before your S does. Okay? So as long as you're following the graph, you're going to be fine. You're going to make 14 X's across total. Then you're going to come down 3. You're going to make sure you have 5 going that way. And you're going to follow it all the way around and end back up. Because the word things will actually begin in line with this S. But after I complete each letter, I'll come back and show it to you. And then, of course, I will put up the new graph. But the biggest thing you have to remember is all your letters are going to start evenly on the same row, straight across. And you want to make sure you're skipping 2 spaces from the furthest part of your letter. Okay? So for example, when you get your R, all right, you're going to skip 1, 2 spaces, and then you'll start your first X of your R. And then you can either take it down and around, or you can go around and come back up and meet. All right? So it's real important that you're giving 2 spaces from the furthest part of your T sticking out, or your letter sticking out. So for example, you wouldn't do 2 spaces from the base here, the side, because you've got all this up here. You want to make sure your 2 spaces start from the farthest point of your letter. All right, so here is the T. And I'll meet up with you when we get the T finished. Look at you, you got the ST done. So now we are going to be moving on to the R. And here is the pattern for it. And same concept. You can start and move around however you want, however you feel comfortable. And then, of course, just use the graph to fill in the center. So let's talk about this for just a minute. All right, for the body of the R, you're going to do a total of 68 X's. You need a piece of yarn, 148 inches. And then for the center part of the R, you're going to do a total of 14 X's. And you need a 40-inch length of yarn. Now, remember that first piece of yarn that was left over from my S? That's where I'm going to bring in my 40 inches. It's actually 41 inches, so I know that it's going to be more than enough, because in the yardage that I'm giving you, or the inches I'm giving you, I have included an extra 10 to 12 inches required, just to make sure we have enough to get all the way around each item. All right, so once again, when you go to start with your R, you want to go out 2 spaces, so you have 2 spaces separating your letters. And again, you're going to do those 2 spaces from the side that sticks out the most. So you're going to do your 2 spaces, 1, 2, from here, because that's where it sticks out the most, not from here, because obviously if you do 1, 2, your R is going to run into your T. So you're going to come up here, 1, 2, and then you're going to start your R. And there's the first X of my R. So using the graph, go ahead and complete your R. And I will meet back up with you when you have your R finished. We have completed the R, and I wanted to just share with you that my blanket is kind of stretching a little bit as I'm working these letters on it, but I'm not really worried about it, because when we put the border on, it'll help stretch it back into shape, and plus the first time you wash it, it will also help. All right, so now we are ready to go to our next letter, which is going to be the A. And as you can see, we're staying right in the sync, meaning that we have 18 rows in length and 14 rows in width. To complete the body of the A, you're going to make 64 X's. You need a strand of black yarn that is 140 inches long. And then you're going to make 14 X's to complete the center part of the A. And you need a strand of yarn that is 40 inches long. And more than likely, you have that left over from one of the other letters. All right. Again, don't forget, you're going to space between your letters. And so our R is equal on the side here. So you're just going to come out 2 spaces, but of course up here. And start your A. Keeping in mind, you have to go out 2 spaces from where it sticks out the most, not here, but here. but of course take it straight up, go out 2. And then when you get to your A, if you're doing the top row first, you have to go in 1, 2, 3, 4. See how that first X is in the 4? Or if you're doing here, you have to go 2 spaces and then count down so that you're starting in the 4th spot. So however you decide to start your A, that's how you need to read the graph. But I'll meet back up with you when you have your A finished. We have the A done. And I just want to show you real quick when I turn this over that if you look, by doing 2 pieces of yarn to do the body and then the center, as you can see, we have no yarn stretching over anywhere. So it just keeps it having a nice smooth look. And if I try to flip this really quickly, even though it's backwards, it just shows you how nice it looks even on the back side, the wrong side, when we don't have those yarns like stretching over, because we'd had to have carried it somewhere to get to the center. But by doing them individually, look how nice that looks, regardless if it's not the right side of the project. All right. So the next letter we're looking at is N. And once again, our N is going to be 18 rows long and 14 rows wide. And you're going to do a total of 78 X's to complete this N. And you need a piece of black yarn that is 168 inches long. And once again, you want to skip 2 spaces from where your A ended at the longest point, which even backwards you can see it is even. So you just have to skip 2 spaces and start your N. So I will see you when you have your N finished. All right, we have finished the N, and at the moment we have the word ran. And now we're going to look at the G in Stranger. And again, it is 18 rows long and 14 rows wide. We're going to make 72 X's to create the G, and we're going to need 156 inches in yarn. Remember to skip your 2 spaces, and the N is straight, so we're literally just going to go over 2 spaces. I know with the lighting there, that's a little bit better. You can see a little bit more, but we've got our 1, 2, and then we'll start our G. Put my light back up. All right. And again, you should be getting the hang of this by now, but just know that when you come to the 1 spot, you've got to go over to start. However you're starting, you can start any way you want. But once you have the G done, we'll come back. We have the G done, and it's funny. Okay, now it looks red and black. When I take my hands away, it looks purple and orange a little bit. But we have the G done. We've got rang. having fun with the words. And now it's time for the E in stranger. Lay my blanket flat here. And here is the E. And again, as you can see, we're 18 rows long, 14 rows wide. We will be making 90 X's. I believe the E is the letter that has the most X's in it. As you can see, almost the whole body of the E is straight on all the edges, of course, obviously, except for in here, but we're still making quite a few. So it's probably the easiest letter that we are making, but it has the most. So it's got 90 X's and you need 192 inches in your yarn. Again, you'll probably have a little bit of extra left over, but again, because you want it to look, you know, mirror, so to speak, from the right side to the wrong side, the front to the back, we want to make sure that we have enough yarn that we are not having to break it at any point and weave in a bunch of ends. All right, so I will meet up with you when you finish your E. Again, remember to give yourself 2 spaces, and you're not doing 2 spaces from the top of the G. You've got to do it from the little lip of the G here. So out 1, 2, and then go up. You should have about 4 stitches in between this part of the G and starting your E. All right, but when you come down, it's spaced 2 between the letters. All right, I will see you when you have finished your E. Back and E is done, so we're looking at what looks like range, but it is actually almost the full word of stranger. We just have the R to finish. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And then the word stranger will be complete, and then we'll start our second row for things. Now notice on this, the R is bigger than what you've been working with. It is the same size as the S that you made at the beginning. It is 24 rows long and it is 17 rows wide. But you're still going to do it just like you've been doing all the other letters, and just follow the graph. You're going to be doing 81 X's in the body of the R, and you'll need 174 inches of yarn. And then you're going to be doing 18 X's in this little centerpiece, and you'll need 48 inches. Now, more than likely, some of the scrap yarn that you've been hanging on to from the other letters, even possibly this one, I know definitely the yarn that I had left over from doing E is going to be more than enough for me to do the centerpiece. So continue to use those little scraps so that you are using that yarn wisely. All right, go ahead and finish your R, and we will have stranger complete, and then we'll go to the second row and start working on things. Now, don't forget, you're going to skip 2 spaces before you start the R. So just want to make sure you're keeping your spaces up. But look how nicely that looks being spaced out. All right, so I will see you when you have R finished. Ready to start the second word, and the first letter that we're going to do is going to be a T. And again, unlike the word stranger, only the S and the R in stranger is going to be bigger, but all the letters in things are going to be the same size as your TRANGE in stranger. So we're going to be 18 rows long, 14 rows wide. There's going to be 60 X's, and you're going to need a strand of black yarn that's 132 inches long. I'll bring this back over in just a minute. We're going to do all the letters and things just like we did in stranger, but before you can get started, let me show you exactly where the placement's going to be for starting the T. All right, we're going to come find the farthest X on the bottom of our S on the left-hand side, and we're going to count over 19 stitches. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. So this is where our T is going to start. But we only need a space of 2 from this T here. So we're going to go all the way up the row. So I'm just going to follow the row all the way up. All right, so it's in line with that T. Okay, and I'm going to come down 2 spaces. So 1, 2, and that gives me my 2 space in between. So this is where I'm going to start. So I'm going to grab my work and grab that hole, and I'm going to bring my needle up and I want to leave enough so I've got a tail. And technically I would have wanted to end here, but since I did it there first, I'm going to come where I end here, and then going forward I'll go this way, then this way. And there's the first X in my T. And since I am going to go straight across to start my T and then come around this way, I'm just going to keep going to do my 14 X's. So again, because I want it to look nice and neat on the back side as well, for the remaining 13 X's of these, I'm going to do my X's in this rotation, going from the top right corner to the bottom left. And then I'm going to complete the X by coming in the top left, and then going into the bottom right. And that is the placement to start the second word. So now I will just keep working my T as I did with the first word. have your T of things completed, and if you'll notice, it's lining up perfectly with the T above it. So now we're ready to move on to the H. And once again, our H is going to be 18 rows long, 14 rows wide. We're going to be doing a total of 84 X's, and you're going to need about 180 inches of yarn to complete your H. All right, just like we did up here in the top, you're going to go from the side that sticks out the furthest of your previous letter, so right here on the T, and you're going to space out 2 stitches before starting, and you'll see that your H then will end up lining up right with the R as well. All right, so here is your H. Well, you should have finished your H, and I don't know about you, but the more we get accomplished, the more excited I get, especially when you can see this like coming together as a thing, you know? So I hope you're having as much fun with it as I am. All right, we are ready now to go on to the letter I. And as we have been, our letter is going to be 18 rows long, 14 rows wide. You're going to make a total of 72 X's around the body. All right. And you're going to need a strand of black yarn 156 inches long. Again, I know that each strand of yarn has been a little bit longer than what I've needed. It might be coming out just perfect for you if your tension's not as tight as mine. But we're almost there. We're 4 letters away from having Stranger Things written. So happy crochet in the I, and when you're finished, we'll come back and move forward. See ya after you've done your I. So we have the I completed, and now it's time to move on to the N. And I think it's cool that it's going to fall under the N in strange, but here we go. And again, it's 18 rows long, 14 rows wide. We're going to be doing a total of 78 X's, and you need a strand of black yarn that's at least 168 inches in length. So go ahead and add the N and we'll meet back up and get ready to do the G, which again, I think is really cool that the N is going to fall under the N. So we have the N in strange and the N in things, and then it's going to be the same way with the G. The G will fall underneath the G. All right. Happy crocheting your N, and I will see you when you are finished. All right, you have finished the N of the word things, and I'm telling you what, this blanket is looking so great. Oh my gosh. So now all we have left to do is the G and the S of things. So here is the letter G. Again, it's 18 rows long, 14 rows wide. You're going to be making 72 X's to complete the body of the G. You need a strand of black yarn that's 156 inches long. And then when you finish making your G, we're going to come back and work the last letter, the S. So have fun making the G, and I will meet up with you when we've completed making it. You completed the G, so we now have almost our full word done. Stranger, and we've got thing, so we just need to do our final letter, S, for things, and we will have our word complete. So for our S, we again are doing it 18 rows long and 14 rows wide. We've got a total of 64 X's left to complete our last letter. You need a strand of black yarn that's at least 140 inches long in length. And then we will have our final letter made. So go ahead and work your S, and then we're going to come back and we'll finish up the final details of this section of the blanket. So we now officially have the title of our series, Stranger Things, completed. We're not quite finished with this panel yet. We have to add just a little bit more detail, but before we get there, let me just stress, if your blanket panel is a little bit wonky right now, meaning that it is stretched out in a weird shape from where you have sewn the letters in, do not let that discourage you. As we continue to move down the blanket, you're going to see it begin to straighten back out as it gets weight. And then same thing when we go to add the border on the top and then around on the sides, it will straighten back out. All right, maybe yours didn't do that, but mine did a little bit. So don't let it stress you out. Don't let it worry you. Okay, the final details that we need to add is the line that runs across the top of the word stranger and the line that runs across the bottom of the S and the R of stranger. We're going to start with the line that runs across the top because it's a lot longer. And to get started with that, first off, you're going to need a strand of yarn that's 275 inches long. Now that's going to create a really long strand, so just make sure you've got it doubled over, and I've done that almost all the way to the end just so that it's not quite as long, giving myself just a little bit to work with, and then as I need to, I can continue to move it forward. Now if you look at your letters, you've got 3 rows from where the letters begin. We're going to skip the first row above the letter, and we're going to work in that middle row, and then that leaves the top row to create our border. Again, I apologize for the lighting. I am working on getting a better camera stand and a better camera. It's just all taking some time, and that will help us be able to zoom in and zoom out from the actual work. All right. Let's get started. Now, to start our line, we need to find where our first stitch of our S is. And it's not going to be this one here on the top row. We've got to come all the way here to where it juts out the most. And this is it right here. So we're going to take our hook, our needle, and we're going to insert it into the top left corner of that stitch. Run your needle all the way up until you get to the bottom left hand corner of that middle row. When you've done that, you're going to bring your needle from the back and pull it to the front, and this will get us started with creating that row. And you just, like we did with the letters, you want to pull it through slowly to help keep that massive length of yarn from knotting up. And then you want to just pull it so that you have a tiny little bit of a tail for weaving in. I'm going to hold mine to the front here so I don't work around it on the back. And then we're going to come to the right top corner of that stitch, insert our needle from front to back, slowly pull it through, and we've created the first half of the first X. Go into the top of the left corner of that stitch and pull it through, and then insert it into the right bottom corner of the stitch and pull it through. All right. Then we're going to move to the next stitch, and we're going to enter into the top right corner and pull it through. and then we're going to enter, going from front to back in the bottom left corner of that stitch. Then we're going to enter it into the top left corner, going from back to front, pull it through slowly, and then we're going to enter from front to back in the bottom right hand corner. And you want to continue making your X's like this so that you've got this clean look when you're looking at the back side of your work. I'm going to do one more with you. Going from back to front, come into that top right corner. Going from front to back, go into the bottom left-hand corner. Going from back to front, come into that top left-hand corner. And then going from front to back, go into the bottom right-hand corner. And this will complete your X for this stitch, and you now have 3 X's. We're going to continue working X's side by side until you get all the way to the furthest point of the R. So again, that's not going to be this stitch here. It's going to be this one here. And when you come all the way up, this is the last X. So it'll match. It'll be in line with this part of the R. That's where you're going to stop and fasten off and weave in your ends. So go ahead and do that, and I will meet back up with you when we have that line created. Okay, so we have our line above stranger finished. And now we need to do one right here under the R and right here under the S. And I'm going to get you started with the one under the S. And then you're going to do the exact same thing with the one under the R. First thing you need is a piece of black yarn that's about 50 inches long. All right, I'm going to see if I can help my camera get focused in here so we can see this a little bit better. All right, here we go. So here is our first X. We're going to come down one row because we want one row spacing in between. Then we're going to come down one more. So now we have 2 rows between our darning needle and the letter. All right. We're going to then grab that, mark it with your finger, and you're going to bring your darning needle from the back to the front in that same hole. And as always, you want to leave just enough of a tail to weave in. So we've come up through the, let's see, yep, we've come up through the bottom left corner. We're now going to go from front to back, going in the top right corner of that stitch. And I'm holding on to my tail on the back so I can get that nice and snug. Now we're going to come in on the top left from front to back, and then we're going to go from front to back, from back to front, sorry. We came through the top left from back to front. Now we're going front to back in the bottom right, and this will conclude our first X. And we're going to do this row just like we did the long row above stranger. I'm coming from back to front in top right, front to back in bottom left, back to front in top left, and front to back in bottom right. I'm going to do one more with you. All right, we're going to come from back to front through the top right. We're going to go front to back in bottom left, and then back to front through the top right, and front to back through the bottom right. And we've got 3 X's, and you're going to continue doing this until you have a total of 19 X's. When you have 19 X's, you're going to stop and weave in your N, and then you're going to go do the same thing up under the R. You're going to go to the end of the R where it ends, and I'll show you in just a minute after I finish this X. And so we're going to continue this until we have 19. So I've got 4 here. So it's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And that X, that last X, the very end of it, will be in line with your T. Okay, so that's all you're going to do. Then after you fasten off and weave in your N, you come to the R, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to come down from the end of the R here, and you're going to count down 2 rows. 1, 2. Then you're going to work from back to front, and you're going to bring your yarn through the bottom right. Then you'll work front to back through the top left. Then you'll go from back to front through the top right, and then front to back through the bottom left. Then you'll come in from back to front in top left, front to back in bottom right, back to front through top right, and front to back through bottom left. And you'll do that until you have 19 stitches, and that will have you ending 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So the edge of your last X will be in row or in line with the edge of your S. So when you finish all of that, come back and we will have this section of the blanket completed. All right, I'll meet you when you have the 2 short lines created. We have done it. We have completed this section of the tutorial, and it looks amazing. And I am going to insert a picture of it so that you can see the entire blanket and see what it looks like all together. So enjoy this picture. Well, this concludes part 2 of the Stranger Things project. I hope you are enjoying the process of it so far, and I look forward to receiving pictures from you. I'm going to put my email address in here because, again, I want to encourage you to send me pictures of your progress as you go along so I can put a collab video together. And If by any chance someone is watching this and doing this tutorial after we have finished it, I would still love to receive your pictures and, with your permission, be able to show them on my channel. All right, until part 3, happy embroidering, cross-stitching, however you want to look at it, the word Stranger Things, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.